A lot of people tell me that I'm super lucky because I don't have any extracurriculars to balance with school, so my life is so much easier. And to those people, I say that they're dumb as shit. No. But if that does sound like you and you are struggling to manage your time when you have extracurriculars, then I made this video for you. My name is Daniel, and I help students get better grades without sacrificing all their time. And for those who might not know, I used to have a lot of extracurriculars too, and I found my own little method of balancing things out, and today I'd like to share that with you. And so the problem here is that, well, you don't have enough time to do the things that you want, right? It's a time issue. And so we need to account for what most people spend their time on. Now, obviously, everyone is different, everyone has a different routine, and there's no possible way I can predict what people do. But I can go through things that I know most people will need, and we can balance and tinker with those. So let's begin. Most people need to go to school. That's kind of a must. Because if you don't go to school and you're skipping school, then why the hell are you watching this video? Second one is extracurriculars. Now, obviously, if you don't have extracurriculars, why are you watching this video, right? The third one is homework, whether that is homework from school, whether that's homework from your extracurriculars. Your extracurriculars will also just be like sports, just like practicing sports. That can be considered homework too, okay? And so we have those three. We also have sleep, because if you don't sleep, you will die. And lastly, you have recharge time. If you don't take time to relax and recharge your brain, then you're going to burn out, and then you're going to be absolutely terrible at both not only school, but also your extracurriculars. So recharge time is important. And so those are the 5 things that I know most people need or do in their daily lives. And so now that we have kind of narrowed down the activities that we know most people will use, let's tinker around with them. So let's look at the first 2, which is school and extracurriculars. We can't really move those times or optimize those times. You could, technically, with school and all that. But for the most part, those times are set in stone. You wake up at like whatever and go to school at 8 a.m., come back at like 4 p.m. I don't know. But listen, those are things that are less flexible. So we're going to ignore those for the purpose of this video, and let's focus on the other 3, because those are flexible and those we can tinker with. So we have homework, sleep, and recharge time. I'm gonna just focus on homework and sleep for now because they kind of go hand in hand with each other. And so for homework, we can break homework down into 2 parts that determine the quality of work. Because obviously, we want to be good at what we're doing, and we want to actually make sure the time we spend on improving is productive, right? The 2 metrics that we use is efficiency, not speed by the way, efficiency, and time spent. The reason why I use efficiency and not speed is because speed implies that you're trying to optimize for getting the work done as fast as possible and nothing else. So technically you could have like a 5-minute essay, which is probably not going to be a good essay. And so for efficiency, we won't go too in depth about this because I already had made a video on how to be naturally smarter, think better, and learn more. If that is something of interest to you, then you can go back and watch those videos. But I'll just quickly go through a quick summary. So for efficiency, if you're able to think better, if you're able to get ideas faster and just work faster in general, then obviously you don't need as much time spent, and you can, I guess, save more time to do other stuff. And so for time spent, this is the one that's a little bit more important for this video, because this is a video about a time issue after all. With time spent, obviously the more time you spend on doing whatever, the better you're going to get, or the better results you're going to get. But at the same time, what we're trying to do is we're trying to balance, not spending all of our time on extracurriculars, or trying to spend the optimal amount of time to get the mark that we want to get without having to sacrifice sleep or going out with friends, because those are important for most people. And so let's just leave that on the side for now. The next thing is sleep, right? And so the correlation between time spent and sleep is obviously, the more time you spend, the less sleep you're going to get. And I know that a lot of people are saying, well, that's not true. You could spend like 6 hours on doing work, but then, you can still sleep at the same time every day if you really tried. Yeah, but if we're going into such depth like that, then obviously it's going to be a lot harder, a lot more complicated for people to relate to. So for the purpose of making this two-dimensional and understandable, we're going to use this relationship. The more time spent, the less sleep you have. The less time spent, the more sleep you have. Okay? And so obviously you need to sleep more, and the better the sleep you get, the higher the quality of work. So you can see that this is a whole loop. And my point here is that you want to optimize for the time spent as much as possible. And to do that, without sacrificing sleep, you need to use up all your idle time. And what I mean by idle time is the time that you spend doing jackass nothing. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, I don't do that. Yes, you do, buddy. So the more common ones are, scrolling on Instagram, just like staring into space, all that bullshit. But the less obvious ones can be something like, for example, you sitting there and staring out the window during a car ride. Or, you're in school and maybe it's lunchtime and you're not really doing anything, you're just kind of talking with friends, but like nothing's really going on because like school is boring, And so those are the times you need to optimize for work. And yes, I know it sounds absolutely terrible, but this is the reality if you want to be able to save time to do the things that you really want to do. And a lot of people are saying, yeah, but it's so hard to, do work and I don't even have that much time anyway, so why would I even do that? That's what's keeping you shit at school. Look, I know the activation energy for things like, working in uncomfortable circumstances, like for example, being in a car ride or working at lunch can be really difficult. But if you don't spend that time then your future self is going to be absolutely cooked with the amount of work that you have to do at home. And not to mention your extracurriculars, which are taking a big chunk of your work after school anyways. Why would you waste any of the time that you have now if you're not doing anything, right? And just so you know, your first time trying to optimize your time for the entire day, you're going to struggle a lot. And you're going to be so burnt out and mentally fatigued that you don't even want to continue for the next day. But that's the skill. And I always use the gym example because it's such a good example for this. If you can't do 100 push-ups in a row, why would you try to do 100 push-ups in a row, right? I think a lot of people are aiming to make this huge transformation in a few days when obviously it's a skill that you need to build on. If you can only do 20 push-ups right now, and let's say in that example, 20 push-ups equals, optimizing 20% of your day, or 20% of the idle time that you have in your day, how would you expect to optimize 100% of your time or 100 push-ups instantly? It doesn't make sense, right? So I just want to throw this disclaimer out there because you are going to struggle and you are going to fail sometimes, and that's the process of getting better. And look, either way, you are going to be burnt out eventually. It just happens. And this is why we have recharge time. I like to do this in two different methods. I've tried both. I personally prefer the one I'm going to tell you first, but you can try both and see what works for you. So the first method is the 6 to 1 week method. And this is basically you work 6 days, or it's more 5.5 to be honest, but basically throughout the entire weekday when you have school, you're working as hard as possible, right? You don't take any adult time, you don't take any recharge time, and you just work. Now, a lot of people are going to say, oh, that sounds intimidating. I don't want to do that. That sounds terrible. But it's really not too bad, especially if you're like me. But I digress. And so the only time that you do really recharge is Saturdays for me, anyways. And Saturdays is a day where I don't do anything at all except for the things I want to do. Right? It's like I get the whole day to myself, a whole day of relaxation. Now, if you're going to do something like this, then I want you to be able to plan your day out, or you plan that rest day out, because I think a lot of the times when people take rest days, they just say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to do anything today. And they don't. And they feel like absolute shit at the end. And they're like, oh, I just want to go back to work. And then they go through this vicious cycle of unhappiness and unfulfillment. So being able to plan your day out before you actually have your relaxation day, being able to plan that shit out with, how should I say it? Activities that you want to do and keep yourself busy, but in a way that is enjoyable and less stress, is the best way to do it, because then you feel like, okay, I get to do everything that I want to do. And you go to sleep that day thinking, I got everything I want to do accomplished. And that's the type of days you want to have. And then on Sundays, sometimes it's half and half. I don't do as much because, I'm still adjusting to getting back into the workflow. But it's like, 50% maybe relaxation, 50% work, because I'm trying to, gear my brain up for the next 5-day work week. So that's the strategy that I use to optimize my time. I think it works very well because, there's 5 days where I'm trying to do as much work as possible and I don't have any rest day at all or rest time at all. But for someone who might not be comfortable with taking 5 days of intense work and productivity, method 2, which is nighttime routine, works really well as well. Essentially, it is 30 minutes to 60 minutes of doing whatever you want at the very end of your day, right? For example, you go home, you do your work as soon as possible, you get through it, you're slogging, and then at the very end, when you're about to sleep, you have 30 to 60 minutes of rest time where you do whatever you want, whether that is, eating food, watching something, talking with friends. Relax, just shut off your brain. And the reason why I say don't do it before you do work is because it's hard to, I've spoken about this before, but basically when you're in the workflow and you're in this flow state of doing everything and you're super focused and you break that flow instantly, it's very hard to get back into it. And, having one really productive block is better than having 2 semi-productive blocks with a random rest time in between. And I think that, if you rest in between and you're expecting to do work again, it's just not as enjoyable. So probably you want to do it at the end. And yeah, that's kind of it. So I think, maybe if I missed one of the more key activities that most people will do, you can write it in the comments. If you don't agree with this method, you can also write in the comments and give me feedback. I'm always trying to learn and improve on what works for other people and what works for me. If you want to hop on a call with me and discuss, what's holding you back from getting the grades that you want, or what's the challenges you're facing with learning something new, then don't hesitate to reach out by emailing me. My email's in the description, and I'll see you guys later.